Hello and welcome to Baron's Game Room. I'm Aaron as always, and let's finish up this month's two-player games. Today let's talk about Splendor Duel. Splendor Duel is obviously a two-player spin-off variant of Splendor. You are jewelers trying to build your jewel empire. First thing for setup, take out the board and place it where both players can reach it. Place the 3 privilege tokens near the board. Then take your 3 different decks here and shuffle them up. Take these 4 royal cards and set them near the board somewhere. And place them on the table like so, dealing out 4 level 1 cards, 3 level 2 cards, and 2 level 3 cards. This shows you the 3 win conditions. You can place this out as well. And the last thing we need to do is to take our sack full of jewels here, and you're going to reach in and pull these out and fill up the board starting from the center slot, that dark one there, and then going around. So for example, I put my first one there, and then follow the arrows, put my next one there, and there, and there, and continue until the whole board is filled. There's a bit of a strict order in which you have to do your actions on your turn, so let's go over those real quick. Once you're all set up, you need to decide which player is going first. Whichever player is going second gets one of these privilege tokens to start, and then let's go. Phase 1 of your turn has 2 optional actions you can take. The first optional action you can take is to use one of the privileges, like we said player 2 got to start off with. If you have any of these, you can turn them in and take any 1 jewel from the board. We'll just assume this is player 2's turn and player 1's already taken their first turn. They could turn in their privilege, just turn it back to wherever the supply is, and then they can pick any jewel on the board here and grab it and add it to their supply. Another optional action you can take at the start of your turn is to replenish the board. Basically, you won't do this right away, but later as the board empties, you can choose to replenish it, which means you'll reach into the bag and take anything in there and place them all out onto the board until the bag is empty. It's not going to fill the board unless you guys literally have no jewels in front of you, but it's fine. Yeah. Oh, and filling the board works the same way as it does at the start of the game. You will start with this space or the first space in that little path that is open and then continue around. So if for some weird reason someone was filling the board this early in the game, they would reach in the bag, mix the stuff up, and then yeah, start going bam, 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 bam. Yeah. Anytime you fill the board, the opponent also gets 1 privilege. So if you choose to fill the board at the start of your turn, then your opponent is given 1 of these privilege tokens. Now we are on to mandatory actions. Whereas you are allowed to take 1 or both of the optional actions at the start of your turn, you can only take 1 of these mandatory actions, never more. Option 1 for actions is taking from the board. You can take up to 3 jewels in a straight line, either vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. You cannot take golds, so anything that's not a gold in a vertical, horizontal, or diagonal line. So I could take these 2 blues and this red here, or I could have taken, let's say, these 2 reds and a green, or this green, white, blue, stuff like that. You should get it. Oh, and I almost forgot, when you're taking that first action of grabbing jewels, if the 3 jewels you grab are all the same jewel, let's set up an example like this. If I end up grabbing this and I take all 3 of these greens, then my opponent gets 1 privilege. So because I took 3 identical jewels, my opponent gets 1 privilege token. Or if I grab in a way that grabs both pearls, as there's only 2 pearls on the board, if I grab, let's say, this pearl, blue, pearl, then that would also give my opponent a privilege. Option 2 for your mandatory actions is to take 1 of the gold pieces, and if you take 1 of the gold pieces, you will also reserve 1 of these cards up here. Basically, you'll take 1 of these cards, and you won't end up setting it in your normal area where you collect stuff. You'll set it like face down off to the side somewhere. If you reserve a card, you are the only player that could turn in the required jewels needed to finish this card. Your opponent could no longer complete this card. Anytime you remove a card from the center, be sure to replace it. Oh, and I should clarify, if there's no gold tokens on the board, then you can't take the reserve action, and you also can't take the reserve action if you've already reserved 3 cards. You can only have 3 cards reserved at a time. The last mandatory action you can take on your turn is to fulfill a card, or buy a card, or however you want to word it. Let's look over a card here real quick. In the top right corner, you'll find what this card itself acts as. I guess we should go over that probably here in a bit. In this corner, you'll see if the card is worth any points. You might also see if the card has any special effects to it, any special abilities. We'll go over those in just a bit. At the top of the card, you may also see crowns. Those are one of the win conditions for this game. We haven't gone over those yet. Otherwise, down in this corner down here, this is where you'll see the jewels you need to turn in to purchase this card. So if I wanted to purchase this card, I would need to turn in 3 blacks and 2 reds. For this example, we'll show that I have that. I have 3 black tokens and 2 red tokens. I would simply take these and return them into the bag. And then I would grab this card from the little pyramid up here and place it face up in front of me. If you've ever played Splendor, then you know what this means, but if you don't, let me tell you. When you purchase a thing, this acts as a permanent blue jewel you can use to purchase anything else. So basically, I have a 1 blue jewel discount for anything else I buy in the future. Oh, and again, like I said earlier, anytime you take a card, make sure you refill it. But yeah, let's say for example, I wanted to buy this card later, on a later turn. Instead of needing 2 blues and 3 greens, because I already have this card, I would actually only need 1 blue token and 3 green tokens to buy this. Yes, that does mean as you get more of these that eventually you can buy cards for free. If I had 2 blue cards in front of me and 3 green cards in front of me, I could take my mandatory action for the turn could just be taking that card for free and adding it to my little play area. You'll actually have to be doing that to buy some of the bigger cards. There's nowhere for you to grab enough tokens to buy some of the level 3 cards. Oh, and remember that whenever you're buying cards, you can either buy cards from the main little pyramid up here, or you can buy any cards that you have reserved. Again, you are the only player that can buy your reserve cards. They are safe from your opponent, but they're still not worth anything to you until you buy them and then add them to your set. Anyway, let's go on to the last few options, things that happen at the end of your turn. Yeah. Now, after our mandatory action, what we will do if we purchase any cards is we will look to see if they had one of these symbols in the corner. Any sort of purple symbol like that is a special effect that will need to take effect right now. This symbol right here allows you to take another turn. So if you have one of these, then you will go ahead and finish up this turn. And at the end, you will take a whole nother turn, meaning optional actions, mandatory actions, all of it all over again. Freebie turn. Sweet. If you see this scroll here, that one's pretty easy. That looks just like our privilege tokens because that's what it means. If you end up buying a card that has this symbol on it, then you also get to take a privilege token. Oh, and I should mention, you can't hoard the privilege tokens because if you do something that allows you to get a privilege token, either getting a card that gives you one, or your opponent takes an action that's supposed to give you a privilege token and there's no privilege tokens to take, then you just take it from your opponent. So if my opponent had all 3 privilege tokens and then they refilled the board, which remember that lets the other player get a privilege token, then I would just take one of their 3 privilege tokens and that's mine now. If you already have all 3, then there's nothing more you can do. You can't have more than 3, but you also don't need to hoard them because your opponents could take them back from you. Speaking of taking stuff, this symbol means you can take any 1 non-gold jewel from your opponent. So if you end up buying this one, then you could look over at your opponent's stash and be like, you know what, I'm gonna take this pretty little pearl here and add it to my side. And let's keep that privilege rolling with this symbol right here. Whenever you buy a jewel with this symbol on it, after purchasing it, you can immediately take a matching color of this card from the board. So if I bought this one here, it's the green jewel. I can then immediately take a green jewel from the board and add it to my supply. And lastly, we have this symbol here. This is only on colorless cards because what this is this is sort of a wild. When you take this card, you can immediately add it to any one set of jewels you've already collected and it instantly becomes that color. So if I take this and add it right here to my little blue stack, that means this is now a blue dye, or a blue jewel, and is treated as a blue jewel for the rest of the game. You can't change it. All right, we've grabbed our tokens or bought our cards or whatever. We've done our extra effects and everything. Let's wrap up our turns with, first you need to check if you have enough crowns. Again, I showed you some cards have these crowns at the top. They are for 2 things. 1, they are for one of the win conditions, which we'll go over here in a sec. 2, they are for gaining royals. If at the end of your turn, you have 3 crowns in front of you, This card is only worth 1, but you'll see there are some other cards, like this one, which is worth 3 crowns all of its own, or 2, or something like that. If you have at least 3 crowns in front of you at the end of your turn, then you will get to take one of the royals here. They are worth some points, and they have some special effects. So if you take one of them, you will immediately do whatever effect is on the card, if there is one, or if it's just points, just keep it in your area. This is just points that goes towards, again, the final goals of the game. And again, if you have 6, then you can take a second one. So you're only ever going to have maybe 2 royals in a game. You get 1 the first time you collect 3, and you can get a second one if you make it up to having 6 crowns. And then there is a bit of a hand limit. You cannot have more than 10 of these tokens in front of you at the end of your turn. Right now, I think I'm fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I'm good. But, for example, if I had more than 10, if I have these 2, then that means I have 11 in front of me. I would have to take at least one of these and discard it away back to the bag. Let's say I have too many greens here. So let's take one of these and put it back in the bag. And now I've only got 10, so we're good. And finally, to end our turn, you need to make sure you didn't win. So let's go over those win conditions. Going from left to right here, the first one here is 20 points. You win if you simply collect 20 points amongst all your cards. Remember, the number up in the corner is points. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and because of my royal, I have 5, 6, 7. So currently, this player has 7 points. If they get up to 20, they win the game. The next one is having 10 crowns. Again, I told you the crowns are at the top here. You get 3, you get a royal. You get 6, you get a second royal. If you get up to 10 crowns, you just win the game. And then lastly, if you get 10 points all within a single color jewel, you win the game. So right now I have 2 points in green and 2 points in blue, and that's all I have for single colors. But if I got enough cards out that just my green cards added up to 10 points, I would win. And I really think that's everything you need to know to play Splendor Duel. I think it's a pretty cool game, honestly. Yeah, me and my family, we're fans of Splendor as is, so Splendor Duel was a great game for us. Me and my wife love playing it because, again, we already like playing Splendor. We would play it 2 players sometimes, and when we saw just a 2-player version of it, we had to try it. And we were really pleased with it. The whole board going out in a weird little spiral is a fun little thing and all that, and it's cool. And it totally makes sense that you can't just grab straight whichever ones you want, because that's just a regular game. And all these duel games really seem to do a good bit on like being their own game. They're not just taking the regular game and putting in a couple of rules to tweak it to be more 2 players. They really are making it a spin-off. It really still feels like you're playing the regular game while also still feeling like you're playing a bit of a new game, a bit of a different game. I like the collection. The whole 2 pearls thing really causes a lot of like tug of war back and forth stuff, because again, there's only those 2 pearls and a lot of cards need a pearl. So there's a lot of fighting going on to get those pearls sometimes. I'm also a fan of the extra win conditions this one has. I believe in the standard game, you just have the first to get to 15 points. The fact that this one has the basic points, but also has the crown situation, which gives you the royals instead of, what you collect as sort of missions, and the getting a bunch of points in one type. I totally get it. I get why those could be things. If you just get enough favor with the royals, of course you win. And hey, if you dominate one market well enough, then I think that's just as good as having a good spread of a lot of other markets. So if you pretty much isolate the rubies as your thing, it makes sense. That gets why you win. So I like the new win conditions. Those are pretty cool. The art's a little more cartoony in this one than the regular Splendor, and I probably prefer Splendor's art a little bit more than this one, but hey, I was never really playing Splendor for the art anyways. It's a great game either way. Oh, and talking about tug of war like I was a little bit ago, tug of warring over those privileges is also kind of fun. The fact that they have the 3 and they're fairly easy to get. Those privileges will get tossed out pretty regularly. And the fact that you can just steal them from the player, you can't hoard them. Good little detail, guys. I like that. Oh, and of course I gotta make one last thing saying I appreciate the tiny little poker chips they put the jewels on. Really glad they're not just like chit tokens, cardboard. These are nice. These are great. The game looks great. The game plays great. If you're a fan of Splendor, I can't see why you wouldn't like this one. If you're a fan of 2-player games, I can't see why you wouldn't like this one. Unless you just like really like casual Ameritrash games, which I'm not saying is offensive because I love those things too. Splendor Duel, yeah guys, it's obviously fair and approved.